Just get the start recording, Jess.
So what we're trying to do today is to look at things from another aspect that we would normally do. So we're looking at the golden thread from a retrospective basis as well. So looking at things as to how we can produce something that illustrates what good looks like, even if it wasn't originally created in that way. So that's part of what we're going to be covering today, Richard. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's been some lively discussions over this last few weeks with the various different workstream meetings. Particularly, one of the interesting ones is around the use of classification systems, which we've been promoting, obviously, right from the start, very rigorously. But what's become apparent to us, in particular, this has started in the US, where the organization that is behind OmniClass, which is the classification, the equivalent for Uniclass in the UK, they seem to have aligned with a for-profit organization, and they're now starting to charge for the use of the classification system, which I think has got a lot of people very wound up in the US. So in other words, if you follow the classification and you put in your documentation the classification reference that was originated maybe in the brief, their proposition is that you have to pay them a license fee for doing that. It's apparently been taken to court in Canada, and it's been struck down or something like that. But it's still a big problem to people in the States. And Nick Nisbet, who's one of our community, has been trying to identify whether this could happen with Uniclass, which I'm just putting it out there because it's something that I think we need to be aware of. Okay. Does anybody have any observations on that, by the way? Is anybody aware of that happening? Yeah. No?
Hey, hi. Can you hear me, Richard or George?
Yeah.
So George, like classification is really a big challenge right nowadays everywhere in the world. Even like while we are project starting from the beginning and the template like Uniclass, Uniformate, Assembly Code, and the end while we are mapping the actual classification with the digital twin platform. So it's a really a keep discussion. I believe we need a important thought individually so that it can be frame out because classification are dependency from the beginning to end of anything like for the procurement or digital twin or for mapping the parameters in actually BMS systems or the sensor, whatever.
Yeah, so I think we need to be looking at this from a point of view of what the industry is willing to accept, because it does appear that private equity organizations are getting involved in this, and as a result of that, they would be discouraging people from using classification systems. Pierre.
George, my opinion is it's a big pile of money. If you take every single project all around the world, all using the same classification codes, like Chandan said, we use it from the start to the finish. Sometimes we don't. But yes, the moment venture capital companies get into doing this, there it is. What's it going to do for us? I think it ends up people will go and find another one. And that's the worst one, is because we need one standard as far as possible. Thank you.
Bill.
Yeah, thanks, George. Sorry, I've got to keep my camera off because I'm on my hotspot, I'm afraid. But just on the classification systems, I'm always keen to just stress the observation that, and I know that this group's focused around asset management, but there always seems little point in classifying the asset until you've classified the product, because the product comes first. It's only an asset once it's built. So obviously, and with my role within ETIM UK and Ireland, that's a classification system which is widely used and is an open standard. But I just wondered if anyone had any more thoughts or has been working with classification systems on products before it becomes an asset.
I think the starting, you and I have spoken about this before, Phil. I think the asset comes before the product because you're specifying what that asset should be and should do, and then the product is matched to the asset.
Not sure I could agree with that, George, because how can an asset is something that's in the term in
No,
the
no, no.
context of buildings, it's installed, owned by the client.
Okay, not in this context. Okay, so anyway, let's not dive into that at the moment. Franco.
Well, surely that's important. Well, okay, so this group's about asset management. What's the definition of asset within this group?
Franco.
Okay. Now, you asked for an observation about this idea of charging for the application or usage of.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Franco. I think just let's square away, Phil, the point. Does anybody here as a designer think that they need to have a classification system against something that will become an asset? I think we're getting tied up on the term asset here, Phil.
Okay, and that's why I asked what's the definition of asset in this group?
Well, if I can, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, so I think certainly get back onto the kind of payment for a classification system. I mean, end of the day, we want something universal. We want a single source of kind of classification that everybody can use and everybody can read. And if you're going to start paying for things, this is not going to get people adopting, which a lot of people still need to do, especially in a legacy estate because they use their own thing. So yeah, we've got to be careful of those barriers.
Oh, okay. We need to get into the presentation shortly, but I think this is a rich area. So, Richard, if it's okay, we'll just carry on for a couple of minutes, if that's all right. But we've got lots of people.
Yeah, that's fine. We can count it as part of the discussion time, can't we? We're just having it a bit earlier.
Yeah, Ian. Ian Upton? You're on mute, Ian.
Okay, sorry, I was just getting on the screen. Yeah, I'd always say refer back to ISO 19650 for asset classifications and descriptions, and more importantly, obviously a common language around classifications, whatever the asset might be, whatever the product might be, is paramount to moving forward within any group like this. So I would always refer back to ISO 19650. What does that define as an asset? What is defined as a product? And then if you get the common language correct, whether you agree or disagree with it, have a common language and then move forward with it.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think 19650 actually is a classification system. It's a process, and it will refer to the classification system, which in many cases is Uniclass.
Yes. So is that not the answer? Do we use Uniclass?
Well, not if somebody monetizes Uniclass. If they start doing exactly the same here that they're doing in the US, where everybody in the supply chain would have to pay to conform with the if they put into their documentation that they're complying with Uniclass reference so and so. That's the point. Victoria.
Yeah.
I want to say that Phil raising a very right question about what considered to be an asset, and to be kind of coming from perspective, as I worked on different sides, the client, the contractor, and the architect. Everything is an asset, depends from which perspective you're looking at. We, with the BIM and ISO standards, we're trying to use the classification. And talking on a Phil's point, when we're classifying the asset, there is an opportunity to work with one-click LCA because it's a parallel classification. Maybe they're not a classification system, but we can work with them to make sure, first of all, that they're using the correct classification on the project, and this is project related. We can't work with them as an industry to industry. They are within the industry. But on each project where I'm working with one-click LCA, we do use the Uniclass classification, and one-click LCA recognize this classification. However, the product classification itself, it's a different story, and it definitely needs to be brought forward.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Pierre.
George, the ISO 55000 deals with asset management. So we've got the BSEN equivalent. That's the part where you can start off from.
Okay, thank you. Who else? Sorry, Paul Toner.
Hi, how you doing? In regards to the classification, I think that because MBS hold it and they sell cores for specification writing, I think there's a high possibility that that could become chargeable at some point. Now, what we've encountered in other projects is that the likes of, airport authorities and things like that have their own bespoke classification system, which is generated by them for them. And another default classification we could all fall back on is probably going to be the IFC classification. That we could, it's a bit more vague, and if you go to the IFC 4, but it's better than 2 times 3. So there's a bit more scope for classifying different systems, maybe not as much as products, but there is alternatives. Bespoke is one, and IFC classification is another.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
George, we are going to need to move on a bit.
I agree. Very briefly, Franco, please.
Well, it's very simple. The classification system is a method of communicating in a way that there are no misunderstandings. So it's like being charged to use an English word by the Oxford Dictionary. So it's
okay,
crazy.
Thank you. And finally, Anthony.
Yeah, it's very quick. I just wondered if the work includes the SFG20 lot, because they've got a huge list of stuff which must be classified in some way or another. And if we're dealing with it, perhaps they ought to be on the group. That was all.
Well, they are part of this group. They've
right,
been
okay, that's fine. I didn't realise.
Yeah, but...
You're muted, George.
Oh. They're charging now as well. So I think that's part of the issue, actually, Anthony. Anyway.
They've just been bought, that's why. Venture capitalists has just taken them off of Visa, because it was a Visa 100% owned, which was a non-charitable. But of course they sold it because they wanted to make money.
I keep getting muted for some reason. I don't know whether somebody
doesn't like you.
SFG.
We are having some trouble actually with the chat. We've been hacked. The chat's been hacked. We've been getting I think we blocked it, but we have been having some problems.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get back onto the.
We're speaking too openly, everybody. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
They don't like
it.
AI doesn't like what we're saying.
Okay. Right. So. Apologies. Right. Okay. So basically, normal session that we have, basically to just look at the engagement that we've got as a group with regulators. This was something that the MSCLG said, and also we've had this from the building safety regulator. So one of the challenges I think everybody's got is that there are so many different sets of legislation that landlords and all of us really are wrestling with the overwhelming level of information needs, and you know, we're still not in a situation where things are smooth. We're also starting to see the impact of this with gateways as well. So things not really working out the way they should. But the important thing is that it's not just whether the regulator's taking action, the industry is taking action as well. So that's one that's underway at the moment. And this one is talked about a lot at the moment, where Mighty are being sued by Mace.
What do you require?
For fire dumpers. Sorry. Can you go on mute, please?
Yes, I was going to go to the bottle bank. Actually,
sorry.
I was thinking about sticking it in the car.
Sorry, somebody's got there. Can everybody go on mute if you're not actually talking, please?
Yeah, so that's around fire dampers. Yeah, so what we also have found is that when we've asked the group, the community, whether people are actually taking this seriously, they're saying that you know, a substantial number of senior people don't believe that they're aware of their duties under the Building Safety Act. So one of the key things that we've got to do really is persuade senior directors that that is important. Now, I had a really interesting conversation yesterday with a consultant, large consultancy, who, when we were talking about the golden thread, they said, which golden thread? And I said, well, the golden thread, and I described and they said, well, the way we look at it, there's two golden threads, and we go for just what's legally compliant. And they're advising that's what they're advising their clients to, which I think is possibly part of the challenge that we've got as an industry, because if we're actually picking over that, I think that we need to, we've clearly got to be, are we going for the minimum? We're probably not can afford to go for the maximum, but what is the default there? So the minimum, as far as I'm concerned, should be building regs. And if we look at building regs for fire safety, what's actually required is that you need an as-built plan that shows where all those elements are. And that's really what we've been saying for the last 2 or 3 years. And we need to accommodate and make sure that the locations, for example, of all the safety critical assets are actually represented. And basically the legislation, or certainly some of the legislation, requires the responsible person to check that they've had all the information that they need at handover to ensure that the building's safe. And my interpretation of that is that that should be what is defined in Regulation 38. And also the contractor has got to provide the information. They've got to sign a declaration to say that they've provided everything. Now, if we're looking at minimum compliance, that can be interpreted in all sorts of ways. You know, so for example, on this, which is a real example of one of the projects that we've reviewed, you'll see that the location of the fire dampers is internal. Yeah. Now, I don't know what you think, but I think just saying that there's fire dampers somewhere in the building is insufficient. Yeah. The same with the fire stopping. Fire stopping locations was at all levels. Now, you might then argue that, well, it's in a drawing somewhere. So we then, on this particular project, we looked at this and we found the fire stopping drawing. And when we then queried that with the builder, that was in the O&M, we said, well, this fire stopping drawing, how can anybody use it? It's a PDF that's just, everything's overlaid each other. And when we questioned the contractor, he said, well, the client said it was okay. I went back to the client and asked them, and they said, well, we didn't look at this. It would have been the employer's agent. So I spoke to the employer's agent and they said, well, there was a fire stopping drawing. Yeah, we didn't look at it. We're not employed to look at to read the information. We're only required to log that the document's been provided. Now, that's what minimum compliance ends up with if we're not very careful. And I don't know what the community thinks, but we think that's not right. So what does good look like? If you're a client and potentially you want to make sure that you're not maybe going for the Rolls Royce, but you want to make sure you're doing something that is actually useful. One way of addressing that is that's why we've got this golden thread community together. So what we're seeking to do is to become a group that is not the group, but a group that is able to share their knowledge and have a common view as to what good looks like. And the way in which we're doing that is by bringing together people that have got experience and are willing to work together. So nobody's got all the answers. We might have fire engineers, we might have people that are looking at compartmentation and the like. And then they can be brought together with software companies as well. So we end up with a group of people that have got some tested solutions, can agree to the specification as to what good looks like and what should be provided. And then that can then get mapped against what clients are looking for. So it becomes a trusted group, collaboration of people that can use classified libraries. So it means that we've got, for example, the GS1 standards that Phil is very much supporting, and also then make sure that we've got specifications and standards. We've also got coordination with modeling applications, reality capture, a whole range of different tools to enable all of that to really work. And in doing this, what we're trying to do is move the golden thread beyond simply compliance. We're trying to look at it as a business benefit. So what I'd like to do is just hand over to Paul Sheedy, who has pulled together a report that you'll see here. This was published last week in PCB Today. So we're getting some traction with this. Paul, can I ask you to explain what we're doing?
Sure. So look, I know we're a group here of very, very specialist people in niche areas, but what I really wanted to try and do in putting up this white paper was aim it not at people like us, but at the C-suite of organizations, so they actually get it. So there's no BSI standard XYZ. It's written really to get the C-suite to embrace the golden thread, to look at this as a business opportunity. You know, where I am now on this, I mean, we are where we are, but we got to go a lot further. As George knows, we went over to Hong Kong just over a year ago, but also the work I've been doing in Shanghai. Shanghai is like a million miles ahead of where London is right now, a million miles ahead, to digitalize things on a different scale. And what I want to try and do is take where we are today, take this golden thread, get the C-suite of organizations to understand why it is a business benefit to them, and also push the insurers to understand that if you have an organization that's taking this on seriously, then they should look at how they lower the insurance premiums of the organization. But beyond this, once you start digitalizing the building in terms of what the assets are, how well things are running, you then get really much more granular detail on how you can start lowering the energy usage of buildings. And I think there's a lot of areas here where, one of my sort of areas of specialities is in fire safety, and what holds me beyond words. And I'm not going to name and shame anyone today on this call, but there's buildings in the City of London that we've been to, visited, and pointed out that 2/3 of their sprinkler systems were not actually working. And these are brand new, spankingly, we all know the names of these buildings, okay? And 6 months later, went back, and they hadn't increased the pressure in the system 6 months later. And what I'm trying to move forward on, my niche of this is how we digitalize all this stuff and then push that to an insurance company. So they have a digital twin of a building. They know what the assets are on there. They know that everything that's in there is actually working, that when things break, they've been fixed correctly. But we wrote this out really to as I said, to help them to sort of understand why this is a key thing that just goes forward. It's a business opportunity for them, and it will increase the value of their assets. And on every sort of, the way we've sort of put this together is to get through that this is not something they should fear. There's not another piece of legislation they're going to go, oh, here we go again, more costs, more, etc. And it's up to all of us on this group to take into consideration exactly what's there on the screen right now, what the sort of cost reduction is going to be by embracing this correctly, by pushing forward with getting your digital twins in place, by pushing forward by making sure your asset registry is correct, and digitalizing all aspects of what's happening in your building. So and it's not going to happen straight away, but it's work.
Yeah, so if anybody wants a copy of the report and you've not had it, then if you just put white paper in the chat, and we'll share that with you. Also, if you're willing to contribute to this and become part of it, then I think also if you put tasks in the chat, because what we're trying to do is to align the tasks that then the way in which that information, that golden thread information, is used. And we've got a group that we're doing with Franco Pittoni, who's on this call at the moment, but also with Morta, to actually turn this into an auditable task information delivery plan, so that the golden thread moves beyond from being just a concept to being something that is part of the process. So if you're interested in that, then put tasks in the chat. Okay.
Has anybody got any points or comments they want to make on what you've heard so far?
Anthony?
Anybody? Because if you haven't, we'll move swiftly on.
George, I've got a very quick one.
Oh no, that's fine. Sorry, I didn't see a hand.
That's all right. Very quick one. Just to make note, and I'll contact George post this meeting. I've set up a group under a CLC hat, one of the hats I wear, to try and define what as-built information actually means. Because when I started asking, it means all sorts of completely different things. And one of the things that really worries me is, as you pointed out, the accuracy of the information that's going into these things, whether it's paper, whether it's PDF. I mean, we've got to invent a process to feed into this that is verifying the information as well. So it's just a note there, George. If I get hold of you afterwards.
Have you got a link to anything, Anthony?
Sorry?
Do you have a link to anything to you?
No, I don't. I'll write to George afterwards. Yeah. And invite you onto the group, George. I mean,
okay. Well, let's just say now, to give Anthony a start. If anybody's interested in joining that group, defining what as-built is, put as-built in the chat, and we can then send your details through to Anthony about that.
Thank you.
Okay, Jonathan Hallam.
Yeah, so I think it was quite your point in terms of the levels of what's that is where the location is. So seeing in terms of when you showed about internal or the where people put all, I've seen that quite a lot of times in terms of what levels information should be put on, and that's what I think needs to be more clearly defined against. I think we've even had it in the AI call, talked about templates, and to me it's about when you've got your list of documentation, most likely what you'll find on your TDIPs and IDPs is going, that piece of file should always be having something at a room level or a floor level, not somebody putting it at the building level when it should be more accurate. So people, I always think of it that if you've got somebody fixing a broken window, that you're not going into a building with 500 built, well, probably some of the ones which were always mentioned in London, there's a lot more windows to find.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Nata.
I was just going to say, I need to jump off again, but as you so very helpful information, as a program, I think one of my biggest struggle has been the information the hospital will need once it's built and handover is different to the information we would need as a program in order to improve the learning and improve the, so it's specifying where do you draw the line, where do you say or specify what information we need as a program for the Mayworth contractor to provide to us, and what the scheme need as a building level in order to operationalize those buildings. So it will be interesting to see how we can utilize the brains in this room and beyond.
Yeah,
just
well,
form,
very much so. We've got, as you know, Nata, we've got a healthcare working group.
Yeah, which I sit. Yeah.
Absolutely. But the important thing there is that a lot of the things aren't just for healthcare. So fire safety, for example, it goes across many different areas. And that's why I think we've got, well, I'm going to come on to that in a minute. Thank you.
I'm going to miss it, but I'll watch the recording for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, briefly, please, if you can, Dave.
You're on mute, Dave.
You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah. At least I was on mute, yeah. I wasn't talking about the cat being outside or something. The only thing I was going to add to everything, following on from Anthony is saying, is everyone looks at the processes, looks at the information, looks how we can do this, and hardly anyone thinks about how they're going to resource doing that. And I just thought it's probably worth sort of mentioning that it's often the one forgotten thing that everyone says, yeah, so we need to do this, we need to do that, and then no one allocates any resource. And so we've got lovely processes and no one to actually, follow those processes. That was just my point, really.
Absolutely. And that's why the work that Franco's doing is so important, because what we're doing is we're identifying what the tasks are and who should be doing them. Yeah, so your point is well made, Dave. So anybody that agrees with Dave, put tasks in the chat, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah, definitely, because it is definitely always the problem that they haven't figured how many resources they're going to need to be able to manage dealing with all this information. So thanks. That was all I was going to say.
And I'll just interrupt quickly there. Dave is actually heading up or co-heading up our operations group. If anybody, they've got a meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. If anybody's interested in joining that meeting tomorrow, put operations in the chat, please. Okay, John, very briefly, please.
It was only a quick one in regards the collation and resourcing matters that David mentioned. Even with a team of fire surveyors, we found that a lot of the tasks we were undertaking really should have been undertaken by the contractor prior to handover. So, as David says, very, very good point. But resourcing is always an issue, massive issue.
Brilliant, thank you. George.
Okay, yeah, so broadly, what is happening, I think, is that we're still working as if we were 5 years ago. So we're using manual methods to do a lot of those things, which is the point I think that John's just made. And what 5 years ago, the risk was that big and the required information was probably that big. We've now got, from a legal perspective, far greater risks. And also, I think we've learned a lot more about what we need to know. And therefore, the amount of information is much bigger. And because of the regulations, you've got to have the evidence. So one of the things that I think we need to just reinforce is that, yes, we want to be compliant, but on the other hand, you want assurance that the building is going to be safe, and the relationship between the three is often around spaces and assets. So that's also true. You know, what's legally required, what's morally required, and also reputation comes into this as well. So again, if we can have some consistency in terms of the way things are coordinated, making sure that everybody's using the same reference, space references, for example, and also that they're referencing the same systems and the same assets. That's why the classification is so important in all of this. And it's also a matter of looking at what's the purpose of the information. Is it for statutory reasons? Is it operationally critical as well? And also from an organizational perspective. So again, that sort of move. And then, you know, finally on that, fire safety, Paul mentioned energy and infrastructure. So making sure that we've actually got that type of information at handover. Now, what we've been doing, we've been trying to look at the whole aspect. I think what Anthony said there is what does as-built mean? At digital handover, we've got quite a strong community of residential people. So if you're involved in residential and you would like to be engaged in what we're doing here, just put residential in the chat and we'll invite you to the next meeting, which is in about 2 weeks' time. We've also got the healthcare group that we mentioned, that Nata mentioned, and we've got the digital handover group, which I think there's a meeting tomorrow, isn't there, Richard, at 2 o'clock, where we're looking at the O&M side of things. And
yeah, that's right. Let me just check the time. You carry on.
Yeah, we've got an active group looking at education. Now, education's an interesting one in that the Department for Education has produced very tight specifications that the contractors and designers working on those schemes are delivering. But one of the frustrations that they've got is that the schools that are receiving that information don't seem to be using it. And part of the reason for that we've identified is that the information that's needed by the schools is different than the information that's being delivered through the design and construction process. So what we've been trying to do is to come at it from the other perspective, and we've got a work stream that's part of the task of this work stream to actually help identify, help become the definer of that information. And one of the challenges that I think we've got generally is that the information is perhaps that's delivered in the BIM models in that particular case. You've got CAD data, which in principle should be coming from the BIM models. We've got some COBie data. You've got O&Ms, and you've got 360 photographs, and all of those things have been created separately in many cases, in isolation to each other. And the challenge with that is then, if anybody's going to audit and review it, it's done manually. So therefore, that exercise means that a lot of the checking that needs to happen doesn't happen. And secondly, it then becomes quite difficult for people to actually use it. So what we're really doing is we're going from the aspect of saying, how can we federate a lot of this information so that it's actually flowing more automatically? We need to move away from the situation where people are having to tie things together manually. So what we're looking for is examples of situations where the information has been properly federated, it makes it auditable, it's connected, and then it's more easily found. So the approach that we're following with that in this particular example is to take the information from the models and extract it into a coordinated database so it can be validated at that point. But then the information that was in the O&Ms is also extracted from the submissions, the technical submittals. So that becomes an important part of the process. And then finally, we're using 360 photographs to actually identify where these particular things are. So on new projects, this is what that looks like. So in this particular case study, we've got the contractor has worked closely with the FM to define exactly what's needed. And in this case, we're using it to identify where the safety critical assets are. So these fire dampers aren't simply being said they're in the building somewhere. It's actually showing where they are. And this, I'm showing this through the active plan application, not to promote the active plan application, but it's to show that if we've got properly coordinated data, we're just visualizing at the moment through this tool, the COBie data. So the COBie data tells us which space those fire dampers are. It tells us what the coordinates are of those. So when we then click on that, it's actually taking us to a schedule, again, a COBie schedule that's come from the models and the associated documentation. So that when you then query that in that particular view was taken from open space, and because it's all classified, there should be no work involved in gluing this together as long as people have followed the right information and the documentation about it. That isn't held in a separate set of files. That's coming through from a product library that the manufacturer can keep up to date. So this is an example of what good looks like. And it's also, Anthony mentioned earlier, SFG20. This is then coordinating with SFG20, which is the maintenance standard. So we've got the flow through of information in that way. So this is a good example, I think, of different software applications all working together. And then later, this is on this same project, the FM has gone in and they've taken their own 360 photos of the finished building, and they've then used that to go and they can then keep this up to date. It's a PFI, so it's 25 years in making, and they've therefore got their own interpretation of that they can then use to send people to site, carry out works safely. They can do the risk assessments much more effectively, and in this case, you've got all of the equipment that's in the classrooms. Again, what we're doing here, we're not doing any new work. It's information that is then also just being glued together. And then here we've got an example of a project that is a retrospective project. So this information probably should have been glued together during the design and construction process, but again, it was delivered in a separate information. So for example, we've got here the fire alarm zones, and those have then been taken and then produced as an interactive fire strategy plan, where each of the spaces then is an intelligent space that knows what it is. It knows what equipment it contains, again, simply because of classification and coordinated data. But we've extracted the information from the O&Ms to be able to create this. So this also allows you to bring in other files, for example, like CAD files. So here, for example, you're able to see the two things. Chris, can we leave questions until the end? Can you try and remember to just make a note of what you want to say? And then
yeah,
we can,
of course, no problem at all, George. No worries.
Yeah. So what we're then doing here is we're bringing in information that was in the O&Ms just as schedules. So here, for example, we've got what that space is being used for. It's a battery store, and that's why it's got a 2-hour fire door on it. But the 2-hour fire door was simply referenced in a schedule. So we've extracted the information from what was in the O&M documentation and recreated what ideally should have been done during the design and construction period. And here we're reading the information from the installation schedules and also the ironmongery schedules. So we've got a combination of the ironmongery and the door information. So you've then got something that can then be used to say, well, when that product needs maybe repairing, you know what the door closer was, without having to go and reference lots of different documents. And similarly, we've done this with the fire stopping report. So if we go back to what I was showing at the beginning about the fire stopping information being at all levels, this is clearly at a better level of detail. And this is very common now, thankfully, that what people are doing, they're actually recording when they install the fire stopping, they're actually producing an individual report for each fire stopping asset with a serial number against it and a little pin on an image of a drawing. Now, ticking the box compliance, yes, we've provided the locations, but how on earth is anybody going to actually use that? There are 1,500 fire stopping assets in this particular building. And the only way of finding that out would be to open up every single file and try and work out where that is. So what we've done is read the locations of those. This is reverse engineering. We've taken the information from the PDFs and we've created a COBie file from it with the tag number and also its location. And we've then taken that and turned it into digital information in the database. So we can then see the interactive fire damper information and the fire stopping information and the fire doors information all in the same environment. Now, by doing that, it means that the O&M information is actually able to be glued together and to be frank, used. So the FM, for example, that may be considering having some work done in this area is able to see the most current and joined up information so that they can avoid the risks. So finally, unless things get checked, we don't think that they're really going to improve, because part of the issue is that checking, as John Morrow was just saying earlier, checking the O&M information that's been delivered by contractors, for a client to do that, that's an onerous task. And it can take weeks and months when you're under pressure to sign off because you want a certificate of completion so you can occupy the building. So everybody's under pressure to do this. And the only way really of doing it, I think now, is through automation. So what this is going on to show is what the team have been doing within the AI group to actually automate a lot of this process. So the way in which we're doing that, we're doing it in 3 stages. First of all, we're actually validating the BIM data to actually check that the BIM data does contain the information that it was supposed to contain. And we've then gone on. The fact is that the BIM models will only contain the things that have been put in the BIM models, understandably. And the things that get put in the BIM models are often design information, not the detailed information that an installation contractor does. That information is often captured in the health and safety file and the O&Ms. And the difficulty with that is that unless you've got a methodology of checking that the O&M information is there and extracting the information from it, it becomes a silo in itself. So what we've done is created a 3-stage process. And first step is to check that the registers, the documents that are supposed to be provided, that have been named in the registers and the schedules, are actually in the files. Now, it's quite surprising, but we've found that that's often not the case. Then looking at the content of each work package to check that it satisfies a pre-agreed criteria. And the third step is to give a report back for each work package, identifying what's missing. Now, that combination of process should give you a list of the things that the supply chain, the contractor, the main contractor says that they've actually installed in the building. The third step is then to be able to use 3D or 360 asset verification to check that what was promised has actually been delivered. So we've got a 3-stage way of creating a validated process.
George, can I just interrupt you? You've said it on that last slide about a competent person.
Yes.
Well, is that a competent person? Where do they come from?
I think we could talk for half an hour on this.
No. I mean, where you're putting forward this as a process. Is this a process that we can do? Are you proposing that as a process that we do, or is it?
Yeah. So the point is what we're basically doing. The law, the way the law. Can people go on mute, please? There's somebody is talking. One of the challenges is that the law has been set up so that the legal responsibility is not actually explicit. It's down to a responsible person knowing having the right level of competence to be able to appoint people that are competent to do the job. So it becomes quite a challenge to work through. So what we're trying to do is to identify that information set and then turn it into reusable
Who's we? Who's we? Is this a task force thing, or
the task force?
Right. Okay, that's what I'm trying to be clear about. So the task force would be supplying the competent person.
It would be informing what the competent person needs to be. But yes, I mean, certainly within the task force, Richard, we've got lots of competent people. And what we want to do is bring them together with other competent people to work on projects. Yes, because the task force is not an entity; it's a collaboration.
Sure. Okay. So, and that's the process that they will be following.
Correct.
Got it.
We've stopped a little bit, so we can take a couple of questions there. I think now, Richard, and we'll go on
Victoria.
to what that process is.
George, Amazing presentation, amazing solution. I haven't saw how far you have progressed for a couple of years. Really impressed. Very, very useful. If I may suggest, and that will be answering probably Richard's question or clarification from my side. So there is a process called BCAR, and there is a science certifier position as well. So whoever is assigned the building and reviewing the certs is probably responsible. But as you rightly suggested, review that amount of information is nearly impossible under the time pressure. And what I have tried, and it really worked, that pre-contractor appointment on the architectural side, if you can include a process where the fire escape route need to be coordinated as a separate package, like we coordinate in facade, we coordinate in roof, why wouldn't we coordinate the fire route escape? Because it's very much a very easy exercise. Usually we understand within one meeting where the fire door is. We understand because not many would know that the fire lintel is actually considerably larger and higher in comparison to, so lintels during design stage not take into consideration, and then the fire damper size changed through when the contractor get appointed, and then we all get distracted to fix the problem rather than actually. But if in your step you have that the designer before submitting to the contractor have to coordinate in the 3D environment the fire escape route and identify the positions of the dampers, that's pretty much responsibility everybody who needs to taken. From my perspective, problem here is that architect appointing the fire engineer way too late in the process. And this question is way too late when the contractor is already on board doing their own things.
Absolutely. And I just to reinforce that, Victoria, what we've recognized as well, that the role of the fire engineer, and it's not just the fire engineer that can produce a fire strategy, by the way. I think you would agree with that. Architects and also specialists in compartmentation can do that. So I think that but it's something that we've recognized, and we're very much in fact we've got a work stream that's looked specifically at fire strategy plans. Donatella.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, so actually, just before we move on, if anybody's interested in what Victoria's just said there, in terms of fire strategies and that side of things, please put fire strategy plan in the chat, because we've already had quite a big effort in that area, and we can point you at that and also get your contribution.
Hello. Oh, hello. Hello, nice to meet you. So I am a digital construction manager so I am working for Skanska, main contractor. So I am working on the model. So you have been mentioning the models quite a lot. So now we are implementing to all our project fire stopping tracking, which means that we have them in the model. We track one by one throughout all the stages, like formed, form, validated, the MEP, the services that go through. So we do have all the tracking up to delivered and tested. And so we do have the information with us. We know exactly where they are in terms of coordinating the rooms. So we have all this information within the 3D model. So for us, it would be understanding how the client wants this information, understanding the bridge between the 3D model and the client platform, if it is the O&M platform or it is the facility management platform. Then I go also a solution for the items that are not in the model, because we are looking into having mini pieces, as I imagine just a mini square, so it's a mini cube that would be representative in terms of spatial element within the model. So it is a stupid placeholder, let's say, but then we can attach to this one the information that you want. So for example, for us, we are not meant to model sensors, but we will have a placeholder within the model, and then we will attach to this the information coming from the subcontractor. So we will do that reverse operation. Now, from my side, the difficulty is all about what the clients want and what information they want and to do what. So I always miss the information, the clarity, because if I know what I'm looking for from stage 3, I can put the requirements in place and I can put the process to deliver it. And just to finish, validation is always a headache from our side too, because we don't know what we need to validate against what. So we are working on automation as well. We are not there yet, so there is a lot of work to be done, and this workshop is very fantastic for that. So thank you very much.
Brilliant, Donatella. Thank you.
Chris.
That's Richard. Oh, excuse me. It's this just actually goes back to slides that George was presenting, and I think hopefully a lot of people on this call are absolutely great. I think this is exactly the right direction of travel, and all of those different components you've broken down there, and we've seen in previous presentations how well that should work together. It might be something that you don't want to explore just at this point, George, but to be fair, I was just thinking one of the areas of real interest is, okay, so we've got quite a comprehensive integrated system of different software, and you talked about that federated model. What happens then if that's in place as a as a process? But how do I, if I'm an FM or I'm a maintainer, how do I interact and how do I affect change? So a wall comes down or a system comes out, and it's how that actually takes place from a very practical perspective, I suppose.
I think that's a really good point, Chris. And part of the process is that we need to make sure that the information that is being collected, both on a new build, but also for smaller projects, is actually in a machine readable format. Now, if it is in a machine readable format and it's complying with the international standard for handover information, which is called COBE, it means that it's in a form that then can relatively easily be kept up to date in whatever system. Yeah. Now, obviously, we're as Active Plan, we're providing a means of doing that, but we're working around COBE. So therefore, it means that any other software company, any other client organization can use whatever they need. So I'd be happy to drill into the detail of that with you.
George, are you going to be showing Paul's film?
Well, what I'm thinking is that with time, I think that I'll explain what Paul's move thing is, and then we'll go on from there.
Okay.
So this particular one, Paul wasn't able to do it. He's doing he's actually doing a BIM audit of one of the big consultancies today. But what he did here, he went through, and this was last month, he actually went through and explained how it was set up, how we set up, or how he set up the rules with input from a whole range of different specialists. So I don't know how much you know about AI, but the very important thing is to make sure that the knowledge base has been set up. So if you'd like to know what the rules are for how we've set up what I'm now about to show you, then if you just put rules into the chat, we'll send you a copy of this. You can actually watch it from last month's.
Yeah, we can send a link to the video, couldn't we, George?
In fact, actually, that's what I think we should do. For some reason, it's not letting me.
Yeah, so put that in. What have you said? Put AI in the chat, and we will send you a link to that. Sorry, rules. Put rules in the chat, and we'll send you a link to that video that will explain it.
Yeah, and then sorry. Okay, so the principle that we're working on here is that it's unlikely. So what typically happens for FMs is that we'll have a model which is probably the designer's model. That designer's model goes to the construction teams to build, and they then add to it. They will also interpret information back from it, but that information seldom gets to the FM contractor fully from the model, from the COBie data. A lot of the information is in the form of documents. And in this particular case, there were 10,000 documents in the O&M manual. And one of the big challenges is knowing whether the documents that you were expecting to be in that O&M manual, in that zip file, are actually there. So what we've done is created a process that automatically checks very quickly the content of the zip file and identifies what's missing. Now, by doing that, this is at a file level, just to be clear. Initially, the first pass is to actually interrogate the data set, and if there's a register or if there's a schedule of documents that says that it's providing these specific documents, it will check and it will tell us immediately whether those documents actually exist. Now, remember, there's 10,000 documents in this file, so therefore doing that is really quite important. What it also does is picks up any files that are not readable. And in this particular case, and this is a real job, quite recent, there was 2 macro-enabled workbooks in there as well, which that is a real no-no, because that's how viruses are transferred. So that's quite surprising. This is the result of the training that Paul showed, where it's actually gone through and audited each of the work packages. There's 54 work packages, and picked up what was missing. So in this particular case, for example, this particular one needed testing and commissioning certificates. So the process, this was the manual process. It took 25 days to actually go through all of these documents and then identify what was missing. So this is an expert going through and actually defining the quality. That then produced an output that identified what was missing by work package, so that they know what. So in this particular case, not one work package of the 54 actually passed the criteria that had been set out at the beginning. But then what we've done is created prompts for doing that, for automating that process. And this is really what we want to encourage people to start to use. And if you want to be part of this initiative, then just put the AI checker in the chat. What it also does, this process, it also then will go and generate the outputs that identify what was missing. So I'm going to stop there and ask Tim. Sorry, that's wrong. What we wanted to do was see if people are interested in that particular process. So could I hand back to you, Richard, and we'll just see if there's any discussions.
Yeah, let's. So George has gone through the plan, the process. What's everybody doing at the moment? Are you using AI? Are people here using AI for any of this stuff? Anybody? So how are you checking your how are you checking your O&Ms at the moment? What's happening?
At the moment, it's manual, so I can say from a large whatever we are, engineering, multi-disc consultancy, all the projects that we're involved in, the majority of work we do is a manual check. In other words, a human checking through percentages of packages that are handed over. Excuse me. And that is all the things that we've spoken about on these calls, all the issues and problems that come to it. But that's what is still happening. Yeah.
So are you interested in learning more about this, Chris?
Absolutely. Yeah, we certainly are. And I'm happy to put my head above the parapet as a representative of MOTS, because there are some people in MOTS that say, oh no, we should be doing it. Yeah, but we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
So it's really important, I think, that we know about this. Yeah.
Brilliant. Shandon.
Yeah, so Richard, like what happened, like Chris said, absolutely correct. One thing we heard about, there are many open source, but the concrete solution to read inside the O&M manual, the warranty period, the actual dates of like the end date, the installation dates, these kind of operational data, that is core studies required. Like opening individual documents and then read about that, then identify the asset register compared to that. So I believe there is no such AI tool inside things can be read and identify right now. But yes, the document naming and some extent Autodesk built, like those something, the documentation part can be possible, but reading the document and identifying and helping out a summarized information, that is, I believe, not happening right now. And I'm really interested to
I
know
think
that.
you may be surprised by our next speaker then, Shandon. Sit tight.
So what I would say, Chandler, you're absolutely right that the technology now is with us to be able to do this. Now, one of the challenges that we've got is making sure that that technology is properly governed. And the AI group that we've set up, which has now got over 100 people involved in it, we had a meeting last week and there was, I think, 70 in the meeting. They are coming forward with ways that they are experimenting with tools. And Tim's going to be explaining how we're coordinating that. And we very much want this to be a collaborative initiative because the knowledge is in the people, not in the technology.
Gareth.
Good afternoon, all. I just wanted to underpin the section around the O&Ms. Myself and George have had a conversation about this in person, but I just want to reiterate to everybody, out of those 54 failures, there are 54 potential claims against the Defective Premises Act and the Building Safety Act. So you can already see that there is risk there. So anybody who's producing O&M manuals, if you're not confident that it's accurate, you're exposing yourself to a potential claim. It wouldn't take a very smart solicitor to create its own biosphere to start coming after contractors and subcontractors. So this is vital. This is something that I'm embracing and driving it for George and the team.
Absolutely. Andre.
Oh, hello everyone. I was just going to you asked if we were using AI, and we had this conversation with George where I feel like we are a software provider, but we are kind of a few steps further into this process when it comes to what do you do once you start breaking down this information. I think, George, we had a conversation on what happens once you analyze all those documents and then you have a list of, from those documents, these are the things that I need to know, or these are the information requirements. And I was going to say that we're working on using AI or taking those unstructured or those just Excel lists and making them into information delivery specifications that are then enforceable into your models.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Gordon.
Gordon.
Yeah, very briefly. Some of this stuff is already getting done, but reverting back to an earlier point about minimal compliance does not necessarily achieve best practice. So best practice sometimes in guidance will bring you some of these aspects, but it's still not getting you past minimal compliance. So effectively, there is solutions out there. There is stuff that's being taken up, and one of the previous comments from the main contractor group is leading a charge there. But it will all filter through. It's just the uptake's not good. But I think manufacturers and adopters that have that need to make that open information so that everybody sees best practice and benefits of that process, because they don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely,
Could I just
Pierre, very briefly.
Okay, so very quickly, the processes, we've automated all sorts of things, but currently nobody's talking about the feedback loop to the people who are doing the design, the engineering and documentation. And that's one big chasm right now, is that we're getting to the end, we can put photogrammetry in, we can do all the things, but they're not improving their design delivery because it's irrelevant, it's outside of their scope. Sorry, thank you, that's it.
Absolutely. No, Pav, briefly, please, Pav.
Certainly. AI hallucinates. Please contact Nick Nesbitt. He's looking at regulatory compliance. There's constraints in actually trusting AI. And it goes back to what the meeting was talking about at the start. We need that common language integrated into contract. If you don't have it, the AI will get the wrong information and not be able to prove it in a law court or whatever. So you just need the left and right hand side working together. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sorry, if I could just answer that, Richard, very quickly. Pav, you're absolutely bang on there. And one of the things that we're trying to do within our group is make sure that we've got that level of expertise of people that know what the answer should be. So when you look at what Paul's presentation, that you can watch it from last month, the point is we're not relying on the AI to come up with the answers. We've produced the answers and then we've used the AI to recreate them. Now that means we've got a known outcome that we're then automating the process of how to get there.
To check.
So we're not saying that there's a magic bullet here, or a magic box. It's actually needs to be overseen, and we're very much looking at this from a point of view of these are tools that need to be used by competent people, and we've got that feedback loop that Pierre was talking about as well, so that the rest of the team, it's not disconnected. So that's why I think the Golden Thread Task Force is a good mechanism to do that. But we need to firm that up a little bit more to make it something that's a little bit more formal, I think, Pav.
Just 10 seconds. Are you going to publish guidance documents that help clients and other people make decisions? Because a lot of group work is happening. It's just that we don't know what the output objective is and what we're going to be giving to clients, because you're doing very valuable stuff and there's lots of meetings. We just need something published as well as we go along. Thank you.
That's exactly what we're doing, Pav. And if anybody wants that, what Pav's just said there, the published documents, then we're almost there with providing that. Richard, how would we communicate that? Are you off at the moment? I think he's doing something else. Can we hand over to Tim? Tim's got some automation that so the point is, what we're then doing, just to clarify, we're providing a means at the moment to audit the BIM models, or the asset data that's coming from the BIM models. So just qualify that. We're auditing the O&Ms and validating them. And the next step of the process is to then check that what was promised to be installed has actually been installed. So those are the 3 steps. Now, what we want to do is make sure that people get it right from the first place, so that we can use automation to actually ensure that the initial creator of the information And in this particular case, we're talking the O&M information can be done in a standardized way without the risk of people getting it wrong. So, Tim, can you step in there?
Yes, I shall just share a screen. Come on. Yeah, present. Should come up in a second. Oh, come on. Is that it? Is it coming up? Yes. Right. Okay. Right. I'll get a different view. Okay. So, if we go, we need to go back to, obviously we're going back to the coalface here to get, good information coming through the pipeline. So the question is, how do subcontractors, those at the coalface, actually engineer good? So what I'm doing now is looking at, with AI, so I'm using AI that can actually manipulate and do stuff on my desk, on my file system, and it can organize information and all sorts of things. So I'm looking at, right, okay, so what's a specialist contractor got? What have they got? They've got a whole series of different types of information. They've got all these things that they do as part of the process to actually build the building. They've got to start off with, they can start off with a tender, obviously, and then which has also got a scope of work, and it says what the specifications are. They then start, when they get the order, they start ordering materials and they get quotations. If you're changing specified products, you've got to do a technical submittal, or if there are certain things that it says in the specification you must submit for approval, then you've got the technical approval submittals process to go through. You've got to make sure that you're complying with codes. You write method statements and work procedures, and you must also then make sure you get all your compliance certificates. So you're doing all this stuff they're doing all this stuff anyway, and it must be living somewhere. So information that we then need to make sure goes into the O&M and the data set, it comes from all this. So you need a process where you can get this information done. Now that's all done manually at the moment. So the AI now enables us to now manipulate the desktop and start running multiple agents that have certain tasks to do. And the hierarchy of the agents can be, an agent can orchestrate what the other agents do as well. And this might seem a bit sort of scary, but in fact, what it's doing is saying, "Oh, right, you've got a schedule here or a quotation of these products, but you haven't got the product data. I'll go and get it." So it goes and looks and says, "Right, you're getting it from this company. It's this model number, etc., etc. Off I'll go. I'll go and get it. Oh yeah, there's an O&M there's a installation manual. There's an operations manual. I'll download that data as well." So, and then they can also write things like Word and Excel files. So they can say, right, you've got a tender document. I'll create a scope of works of what you've done, and which also includes whereabouts in the building that you're actually doing your work. And these agents can also connect to external services, which we've got it actually working with. So an external service might be something like our BIM, which is basically saying, well, the consultants have done all this. This is what the floors and how the floors are named. This is how the spaces are named. Here are the types, the way that the types are named for the products, etc. So when it comes to actually use that, it says I must go and check that I'm not using different terminology or different naming conventions than everybody else. But it does it automatically. The agent takes care of that, because we've seen so many times where you get complete disjunction. So what should be the outcomes of this? Well, first of all, it organizes the folder structure and says, well, I'm going to create these folders to store this information in. So you as a human being can actually see what's actually being done. Now, we know this works because we did this on the UCL project where we deconstructed a health and safety file, and it got it to actually create a folder structure and replicate a folder structure. So all this stuff works. And so what we expect to see is that we've now got an organized repository of the information, and that is enough to be able to create a good O&M data set, and also the other data set, which is the COBE deliverable to get through. So now George did ask me to keep this to 5 minutes. So those are the slides. And what I want to do is just show you that working. So what I'm going to do is now finish that and share. This is called, is that sharing?
Tim, just before you go on to that, could I just make a point? Tim's just referred there to a university scheme that we've helped with. And one of the key things with that, Tim identified that there was a building control approval document in the health and safety file in the O&M, but it was for a different building.
Yeah, and it wasn't just one document though, George. It also was about the site logbook and all sorts of things.
Yeah. So the point was, whoever did that checking, maybe an employer's agent or whoever did that checking, tick in the box that there's a building control approval document, but they didn't actually look at it to identify that it's for a different building.
And the ironic thing about it, George, it was under a section called Golden Thread.
Was it really?
Yes.
But which one? The right one, the wrong one. We did say there was 2 golden threads. There's a right one and a wrong one.
Yeah.
So you can see why this is so necessary. Sorry, Tim, I just wanted to make that point.
No, that's perfectly all right. Okay. So in our company, everybody's using my house as the experiment. But anyway, so I have a project, which is my house. So that is all COBE, has been built using COBE and is inside our PIM. And then I have Home Assistant, which is an automation system. We've now got an MCP server working on our PIM, and Home Assistant's got MCP servers as well. What those MCP, it just stands for Model Context Protocol, so you're none the wiser. But effectively, it has what's called a set of tools, and the set of tools are, if you want to get information about such and such, when you talk to the AI, so if I said to the AI, how many spaces, how many space rooms are there in my house? Okay, so if I just ask that, it's going to the end of the conversation. What I've got up in the right hand, while it's thinking about that, what I've got up in the right hand one is I've been experimenting with it, getting some information, and then I'll say, oh, just send an email to a colleague. So it just constructs an email and sends it to a colleague. So it's just asking for some permissions to do things. So you can see what it's actually doing. So there we have it. I've got 15 rooms apparently. And once you start doing that, if I said, okay, could you give me the areas? I can't set a microphone up, but I'm not going to do that. Sizes. Now, it might be interesting to see whether it does. You should bring back net and gross areas. So, because that's the sort of standard thing that you have against space. But the interesting thing was then mapping the information. So we've got it there. Was mapping the devices in Home Assistant, like the oven. So we've got a smart oven, and it's got two different. It's a split oven, and it's telling me what the current status is. So I asked it to say, pull the details up and then tell me what the status is and send an email to my wife. So so she gets emails from me about useless information. But anyway, but it just shows you the sort of thing, how easy it is at the end of the process. When you've got it all together, you can start to say lots of different things. And one of the things that we're going to be just developing is is in this left right hand window, you can display PDFs, spreadsheets, and HTML, and SVG. And so we're just going to say, right, okay, show me where it is. Give me a plan of where it is, and then construct an email that said, and also we could do and say, oh, and take a snapshot of where in the 360 photograph of where it is as well. So rather than send somebody a 360 photograph, you just take the flat on one, because the 360 photograph will know how to get that set object centered and then take a snapshot of it. So include in the email, this is everything about the status of that oven, and here's a picture of where it is in the kitchen. That's all I wanted to say.
Brilliant. Thank you. Gordon.
Okay.
Just Richard, George, just wanted to say one thing about Tim. One question. We often ask MEP subcontractors, what's the water volume of your closed sealed systems? And they have no idea. They say, they guess, right? They try and use a rule of thumb. I say to them, what did you order? How much pipework did you order? We've got that. We've got a purchase order. We know what we ordered because we've paid the invoices. How much have you got left? What do you mean? How much have you put in the scrap heap? What? Just count the meterage of pipe that you've maybe got left. Hopefully you've got none left. And if you've not, use AI to generate the internal water volume of that equipment, and use AI to determine the water volume of all your dry weight and wet weight of all your devices. Bob's your uncle. You've got your water volume in your system. Or put a water meter on it and fill it. But they can't put a water meter on and fill it because they'll have that many leaks in the system, because they use water to test the leaks.
Yes.
But look at the internal volume. Use AI. Sometimes it's as simple as that, spelling out basics that they should, but they can't, but they don't do it. Because either they can't be bothered, or they're not thinking about it, or they've actually never been asked before, which is even more scary.
Franco.
Just a tiny observation about common language. I noticed that the gross area and the net area values are the same, so there is a misunderstanding.
Yes, that's in fact they actually are the same, but you know, so when you're working out the net areas, obviously the gross area is to the perimeter, and then the net area will be taking away things like columns and obstructions and things like that.
Franco's very valid though, because Franco's not AI. He's a real person, so he's checking the AI.
So just going back to what you said, Gordon, is that I don't have a location of the hot water tank in my PIM, but I do have the hot water tank in the Home Assistant. And when I asked it about the hot water system, it was looking at the PIM, so I just told it to look at that. But if I did, I need to put that position thing in. So it just gave me back the information about the combi boiler. But now it's telling me that the hot water status and everything. But it doesn't actually, in Home Assistant, doesn't actually know the equipment and how big a tank it is, but so, it can give me the status.
Can I thank you. Can I just wrap up just before we finish? What we really want to be able to do is to get hold of or talk to people who are doing this validation process of the information, in particular the information at handover. Now, in my experience, I think the people that would be doing that within the construction companies would be the quality team. So if you know people who are quality managers in construction teams, in tier 1 construction teams, would you, if you do, could you put quality into the chat? Just in case we can then talk to you about who those people are. Exactly the same, if you know of people who are performing the role as consultants, maybe as employers agents or something of that nature, if you could put agents into the chat, then we'll come back to you. And then, because what we really want to do, we're not trying to catch people out. What we're trying to do is automate this process, so we upskill the industry, because people are putting a lot of effort into producing a lot of this information, but the problem is, because it's not connected up, it's of much less value. Whereas if we can automate the process, we can concentrate the people's experience on the things that really do need doing, that we can't rely on the AI to do.
Yeah, George,
So,
can I just add a point in there? Is that when the information isn't connected up, the confidence drops through the floor, and people then put more and more effort having to work around those inconsistencies. And we saw this on that project that we did, where there was, in the Kobe data, there was no references to any of the MEP equipment, so the fan call units, the fire dampers. None of those codes were in the Kobe data. None of the door numbers were in the Kobe data. And the excuse that came back at us was just, well, that's a client-defined thing. And he said, no, it's not. But it just made you think, well, you haven't actually done it then, have you? You've just been paid X thousands of pounds. So, what did you do? So, anyway, that's just.
Okay, Pierre.
Okay, very quickly there, Richard. The standardize. There's the whole thing. So, all of those processes, George, what you've raised now, input and output documents, they need to be standardized. Not the parameter name, but the purpose and the intent of that parameter. And what this does, Tim, it says what you're going to get is the following. There will be 5 columns. Bang. And that way we get a far more cohesive, consistent, and so the confidence will rise because everybody sees the same series of columns. They can package it any way they like, but that's what you're going to get, is those 5 columns. And that standardization is absolutely crucial in my experience from being in the Middle East on global projects. When you've got a big team, it just kills the time. Anyway, thank you.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just going to say that I think having recently changed roles, George knew me from Warrington Fire when we first met, and I'm now at the Fire Door Association. And the reason we're setting up this association is because the market is, the industry is so fragmented, and all these conversations, I've joined quite a few of these meetings, and there's so many good things being spoken about. And since this new role, I've spoke to people who are using AI to inspect doors. There's so much out there, but I think it's just trying to pull everything together. And for anyone not familiar with us, because you probably won't be, because we are soon to launch, the point of this association is to pull everyone together who touches a fire door. So from architect to resident. Whereas I think at the minute, associations tend to focus on specific people, tier 1 contractors or manufacturers. So yeah, I've put my name down for a lot of task groups. Whatever you need us to support with, we'll help to try and pull all this together. And just as a quick example, I tried to explain it a bit like when you look for your car insurance before Compare the Market came along. We're here to try and support everyone in the supply chain.
That's brilliant, Andrea. Excellent. So given the fact that Andrea has just mentioned fire doors, this is one of the things that I'm just showing here, and that is the Kobe data here. This is what Tim was just talking about. The Kobe data here, you've got a space reference there. Now that space reference should be sacrosanct, right? But it also should be up to date. And if it's the design model that's been generated from, it may well not be the current reference. What we've got here down the bottom, this is a door schedule, a fire door schedule, Andrea. So the references for the spaces are slightly different. Now, they may think that they've done something helpful there by putting WC core in the description, but actually it means that it's no longer machine readable. I understand that we can overcome that by using all sorts of different tools to do that, but why? Why don't we use the same references? And and the other thing is, as Tim was saying there, in the AIR, it actually said that you've got to put tag numbers in, which is the unique ID for each of those doors, and they're all missing. So in the whole Kobe for that, we've got no locations for anything. Also,
I love the installation dates, George, and the warranty start dates as well.
Yes.
Beginning of the last century.
Yeah, for some reason it's not letting me progress. But so there's just one other thing that I want to show you in that, and that is that sorry, Andrew, were you going to say something there?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to say, I think it was Pierre who mentioned the standardization. That's something that we're very passionate about doing. You know, I've worked at BSI, I've worked at lots of different places, and I know during that golden thread task group that we were part of, George, sometimes you've got to look outside the industry that you're in to see that other industries are doing really good things. I've come from all sorts of industries, including medical devices, and fire door labeling blows my mind at the minute, the amount of different things I see. But I actually visited a test lab the other day who were doing a third party certification, and their label is very clear. It has a QR code on that takes you to the evidence. And I think it's just yeah, there's lots of good things being done in the industry, and I just wanted to come to a comment that was made by, I think it was Matt in the chat. One thing that the Fire Door Association isn't going to do, we're not here to reinvent the wheel. There are lots of associations out there, and we are here to pull all that information together. So we will signpost to what people are doing that are already associations. So it's almost pulling everyone together in a collaborative family. We're not here to, you know, start something new. It's about just pulling everything into one place. So no matter whether you're a landlord or a housing association or a contractor, it doesn't matter. There will be space for you there that you can find everything in one place. Because having not come from fire doors and looked at many a website trying to build this association, I can't understand it. So if I can't understand it, I understand that some of the people on this call won't be able to understand it.
So just to reinforce that, so this was the next slide in this. So in this particular project, in the BIM model and the Kobe data, there were 20 different fire door types, right? In the actual door schedules, there was over 100. And that's because the fabricator or the supplier quite correctly created different types for different types of ironmongery, for example. So in this particular case, there were 7 different variants based on that one that was in there. How do you match it up? You don't, because it's just not been done. Also, the referencing on this particular case, the drawings, you'll see there on there you've got a drawing where the naming was for D001 for the first floor. So all of the doors are O1s except that one, which is O2, which actually means that it's supposed to be on the second floor. But that same door is also on the 4th floor and on the 5th floor. Now we know why that's, well, I said we know, we probably know what's happened there. Somebody's just copied up and manually edited the drawings, but it's a common problem. So that's what we need to be addressing. But it may be that the compliance people that are recommended, that are advising the client, say, well, you've got a drawing and it's got some numbers on it. Yeah, what's wrong? You've got door schedules that have got numbers in them. The fact that they don't join up, what's the issue? It's compliant. That's what we as a group, I think, have got to push back and say the information has to be fit for purpose. Yeah.
George, one of the big problems right throughout everything that you've said now is about ownership. In this drafting level of documentation, as if you know how Revit works, the owner, the person who put in the door object, the door component, is the person who owns that door. And whoever's their manager or whatever, it's a groundworks thing. They go along and say, check that the details have been done. And that's at the lowest level. That isn't automation. That's just people doing their job properly. And it also raises the level of their awareness. Now, right now, my concern about the automation is that it removes the need for people to be conscientious, critical, consistent, etc., dedicated. And there's a big failing in our industry right now, is that we're saying automate, automate to fill the gaps. And that's a big problem right now.
No, I don't disagree with you. But the fact is, this is the quality of information that regularly and probably almost invariably is handed over. Now, I know we both know it's wrong, right? But what are we actually going to do about it? Well, one way of doing something about it is to be able to identify it. Because at the moment, people are receiving O&Ms and health and safety files, and they just don't have the time and the expertise to actually audit them. So a first step is to be able to do that and enable that. And I think that's why the work that Tim and the team are doing in the data engineering and AI group can make a difference.
Absolutely, but it does need to have that feedback loop so that it's improving the workers, because I'm seeing guys that actually, to them, Revit, BIM, whatever it is a nice glossy way of doing something quickly because I can cut and paste, etc., and actually have no idea about what I'm actually doing. So there's a problem with apprenticeships and level of skills, etc. Sorry, I'm waving hands, which I shouldn't do.
Absolutely. Good. Okay. I think we've run over, which is, sorry about that. I apologize. Richard can blame me. But in practice, I think that what we've actually had is a good, productive meeting. Does everybody think that it's been worthwhile?
Yeah.
Let's have some thumbs up. Yeah.
As always, George. As always. Well done.
Good. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. If nobody else has got any other points, then let's catch up. Remember, tomorrow we've got a meeting at 2:00 that's going to be doing quite a lot on this area. So if you're interested in what we've just been covering here, if you have the time, then come along at 2:00 tomorrow.
Yeah, put O&M in the chat and we will know.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay.
I did put the link in earlier on, George and Richard, for tomorrow. Really
Thank you.
looking forward to
Great.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks very much, everybody. Any other
Cheers,
comments?
guys.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Bye.